some people mistake current success for future success. They say,
Mm.
I've arrived, I've come so far, not realizing that maybe God has a lot more for you, but you've bought this lie that you have arrived.
You are now listening to the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, the Going North podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer and author of the best-selling book, Stay the Course, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be getting some goodies today from the guest that's up next. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as the Going North podcast, you're in for a treat today, my friends. You're in for a treat because we got another super special, awesome human in the building today, folks, in the virtual building, baby, because this wonderful gentleman right here, a pastor and leader for more than 20 years. You heard that right, folks, 20 years, that has a deep burden in his heart to help people fulfill their God-given potential and adopt a paradigm of leadership that will restore the joy to their life. And him and his lovely wife, Tina, have the honor of serving as the lead pastor of Life Church International, which is a community-centric church with over 500 people from 75 different nationalities. And it doesn't stop there, folks. He actually has a partnership with a wonderful organization called Feed that helps feed over 1,000 families per week and provide local food distributors with basic needs supplies to help their communities. And aside from him being married to his lovely wife for 21 years and his 5 amazing children, he says that his most thrilling experiences has been watching God work through his ministry and leadership to bring more than 5,000. You heard that right, folks. 5,000 souls to faith in Christ. So let's give it up for the fabulous TH himself, Pastor Travis Hall. How you doing today?
Dom, I'll tell you what, I was doing good before we started, and after that introduction, I'm doing even better, man. Let me tell you something. That might be the best introduction. I need you to come down and do all of those introductions from now on. Goodness sakes. Dom, I'm doing fantastic. How are you, sir?
Yes, indeed. The fantasticness is all around, my friend. Great to have you on, man. And congrats. 7 Deadly Thoughts book came out this January. You've been on the road virtually and even physically a bit since we're loosening up a bit with this whole nonsense out there with the CV nonsense. And it's really good, man. You've been making waves, my friend.
Well, we're excited about the project. I really believe in the message in the book. I really had the vision for the book about 5 years ago and started the project 4 years ago. So to cross the finish line has been a blessing. But more than that, Dom, watching people get the message, get the book in their hands, and hearing their stories back, the revelations they're getting about themselves, the insight they're getting about themselves, these limiting beliefs that we often adapt and adopt in our lives, and we often build our lives around them, don't even know we did it. That's why I wrote the book. Dom, I kept running into gifted people like yourself who just were full of gifting and potential and talent. I truly believe this with all of my heart. Everyone listening to this is full of potential and treasure. We oftentimes go through life without ever tapping into it because at some point we've established what I call a stronghold in our mind or a limiting belief about ourselves that keeps us from stepping into what could be the best version of ourselves or the life that I believe that we've been created for. So hearing these stories back, I had a leader, actually a pastor up in Michigan, reach out to me and said, man, I've spent the last 3 days. He said, I've been weeping. I feel like I'm healing. I've discovered some things about myself I didn't know were true. And I finally feel free to be the version of me God created me to be. It's things like that, Dom, that keep gas in the tank for me. So.
Wow. Well, that's what I'm talking about indeed. So my goodness. So the vision was 5 years ago, and then it took about a good 4 years to finally bring the project into fruition. So as with all writing projects, I'm sure there's always speed bumps and bumps in the road that kind of hold us back from really getting things done. So especially with your busy schedule too. So what would you say the setbacks that you had to deal with this project and how you're able to overcome them?
Well, the first time you do anything, it feels kind of intimidating, and you don't have a framework unless you know authors that can mentor you. I didn't know any authors at the time. I do today. I didn't then. So I was starting kind of from scratch. I I had taken some online courses, but everyone was saying something different, Dom. One consultant said, here's how you should write a book. And then the other guy said, no, here's how you should do it. I ended up just finding my rhythm. I think that probably was half of it, just finding my rhythm based upon my personality, my, energy levels, my skill set, etc. That was one of the things that I had to overcome. I had to find my rhythm for writing. Number two, I'd never written before. I was a horrible student. I mean, my, English class for me in high school was time to sleep. And so, and so I wasn't a great student in high school. And so I had to overcome honestly, some insecurities about my own capabilities and just do it. In fact, one of the 7 deadly thoughts that I identify is the thought that I don't have what it takes. And it's
Mm,
interesting to me that I had to wrestle with that own thought as I'm writing the book. I had to overcome that own thought that I didn't know was lurking in my mind, in the recesses of my thoughts. I was believing this lie that I really don't have what it takes, and so I had to overcome that thought, that sense of insecurity that every leader has somewhere in our lives. We all deal with insecurity. I don't care who you are. I don't care how long you've been leading. I don't care what your education is. I don't care what your background is. All of us have to at some point wrestle with insecurities that are there that we don't know always that are there. And so I had to kind of fight through that. And the process was interesting. I've already got another project on deck. And what's interesting is I don't project it to take 4 years. Going through the process with this project taught me so much. And if there was one thing I would tell people who are endeavoring to write or do anything, you're going to start a project, trust the process, believe that God placed something valuable inside of you, and take some steps of faith. Just get started.
amen to that. Amen to that. And it's so powerful right there. And it seems to be a trend amongst a lot of folks who publish books is that English wasn't their best subject in high school and all.
No, that's absolutely right. It wasn't until about halfway through I realized that uh, authors have things called editors. Authors have they have help. They have a team, and women, what a blessing. So I was able to sit down and write, and then I had 2 editors help me work on the project, and help get me some of my thoughts together. So I think that's another thing. Don't let your weaknesses limit your vision. I think
Mm,
we've all got them. It's okay to admit it. The key is identifying the relationships around you that can fill the gaps of our weaknesses. I really don't think the answer is always turn your weakness into a strength. I really don't. I think the focal point is focus on your strengths and find the relationships in your life who have strengths where you have weaknesses. Build those relationships, and it's always mutual. It's always a back and forth relationship. But that for me was a crucial part of this journey. And now it's published, and now I'm enjoying getting this message out.
that's what I'm talking about, indeed. And it's definitely a great message because at first, thought that came to my mind is like, oh, I'm guessing he's going to be talking about the 70 deadly sins. I'm like, oh, wait a second. This ain't that. This is something totally different. I'm like, oh, this is
No, that's
good.
right.
This is so good. And I'd have to say, out of all of my favorite out of the 7, my favorite so far is the one where the thought of pride and thinking that we have arrived. And some
Yeah.
people really succumb to that.
Yeah, that's a dangerous stronghold. The stronghold of pride is dangerous. I think one of the things that makes pride so dangerous is the way it moves in and out of our lives. It's very stealthy. It always comes in camouflaged. There's an old saying that says pride in others is plain to see, but in the mirror, not so easily. And I think that is true for every one of us. Pride is the only disease known to mankind where everyone else knows it's there except for the one that has it. It has this capacity to take our vision and our hearing. In other words, I can't see it in myself, and when others try to tell me it's there, I won't hear it. It fools us. Obviously, I'm a pastor, and so I derive truth from Scripture. And the prophet Obadiah said it this way: "The pride of your own heart has deceived you." I think that's interesting, Don, because he didn't say the enemy deceived you. He said it was your own pride. Your own pride deceived you. And I think when we succumb to the stronghold of pride, that deadly thought, I've arrived, I think when that happens, a couple of dangerous things occur. Number one, we put our life in park. We stop learning.
Mm,
We stop learning. We put our life in park. As the great legendary UCLA basketball coach John Wooden said, when you're through learning, you're just through. We keep learning. from the moment we come into this world to the moment we leave it. And that's one of the dangerous things that happens. And we end up settling for something less really than purpose and destiny. I really believe that. I think the second thing that begins to happen is our relationships begin to suffer, because pride has a way of repelling good relationships. It has a way of
Mm,
repelling good people. And there comes a point where we can potentially get so full of ourselves that there's no room for anyone else. And that's why I think pride will find you a place on the shelf collecting dust when you could be pursuing purpose and fulfilling destiny. And that's why we need voices, Dom. We need each other. We need people to look and say, hey, I care about you. I see potential in you. I see a gift in you. And here's why this is so powerful, Dom, because it applies to every quote unquote level of success. Some people mistake current success for future success. They say,
mm.
I've arrived, I've come so far, not realizing that maybe God has a lot more for you, but you've bought this lie that you have arrived. And so you stop growing and you stop learning. We need people that can see our blind spots. Every one of us has them. We all have. Pride always lurks in the blind spots of our life. We just can't see it. And so, yeah, that's an important conversation to have, and not one we always like to have. Right? I mean, pride by its very nature does not want to be confronted or addressed. I mean, it's a humbling process, but as such a beneficial process.
Yeah, you can say that again. My man's dropping jewels, so many jewels, it might end up with the whole Taj Mahal after this whole conversation is over. We've already gotten past tennis bracelet. We've already gotten past necklace. So it's my goodness.
Uh,
Because it's so true. Pride repels great relationships because it's so darn true. I think it might have been Steve Jobs, but a lot of people say is like, hey, make sure you hire those who are like A plus players that like that are smarter than you. Like if you're heck, even better yet, if you're the
right.
smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And
Mm,
pride really stops you from having that gift of being in a room full of wonderful people with wonderful genius and wonderful smarts that you can learn from. And then that'll let you move into other rooms where you can continue to learn and grow and then help the folks beside you and behind you to grow as
mm.
well.
Excellent. Absolutely, Don. Man, I love that. I agree with that. I think pride and insecurity are often, they're brothers. I mean, they're usually connected one to another. And pride usually is a byproduct of insecurity somewhere in our life. Pride usually is sort of like scar tissue over the old wounds of our life, and oftentimes we put it there because we don't want people to see the humanness of us. We don't want people to see that we've been hurt, that we've been wounded. We live in a culture, Dom, that celebrates strength. We live in a culture that celebrates radical independence. I mean, it's I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. I did it all by myself. I can do bad all by myself. And that's we say that, but the truth of the matter is, human beings really are not wired that way. We're wired for relationship. And I heard it said, I don't remember who said it. I'm definitely not the first person to say it, but somebody said, if you find yourself in a position of success, you owe a lot of people some thank yous, because there really is no such thing as a self-made man or a self-made woman. We are all the
Mhm.
product of great people who took the time to invest something in our lives to give us an opportunity to open a door. And I think acknowledging that produces a level of freedom and confidence and security. It also produces freedom in those around you, because Dom, the people I enjoy being around the most are the people who are most aware of themselves.
Mm.
They don't pretend to be perfect. They don't pretend to be completely secure. They admit they have insecurities. They don't pretend like they've arrived. They own every part of themselves, and they're comfortable with themselves, even the broken places within themselves. I think there's something to be said about that. The most successful leaders I know, they know they've got insecurities. Every one of them do, and they own them quickly because they've come to terms with identity. They know that who they are is not tied up in their ability to achieve perfection. And that's probably a whole nother conversation.
I guess that'll be the eighth deadly thought, huh?
You might
Uh,
be on to something, Don.
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Because it's so darn true, and like so many powerful nuggets with just the stuff that you're dropping. Because like it And heck, even pride and insecurity being brothers. Like folks think of pie, they may think of apple pie or sweet potato pie. But hey, in this case, it's the evil pie, like pride and insecurity.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, you know, somebody asked me, they say, "Hey, how did you identify these thoughts?" Well, there's two things. Number one, as a leader and a pastor, who I really do believe part of my calling is to help other people discover their purpose and to help other people step into God's will for their life. I really do. I have a burden to develop the potential in people. So that's part of what I'm called to do. So when working with people, pastoring people, leading people, I just kept running into people, Dom, who was just, as I said earlier, super gifted. And it didn't make any sense to me. Why were they stuck in their marriage? I didn't understand.
Mm,
It was obvious that there were two great people, but they were just stuck. Why were they stuck in their business when it's obvious they have a business acumen? I didn't get it. Why are they stuck in their creativity when they're some of the most creative people I've ever met? I didn't understand. And as I began to dig into it, I began to discover that the problem was not external at all. And that's one of the mistakes we make. When we don't understand the power of limiting beliefs and the power of adopting the proper mindset, the right mindset, we will oftentimes project our limitations externally. In other words, we'll blame the things around us. Well, my boss didn't open the door for me, or my manager didn't see my potential, or my spouse didn't believe in me enough, et cetera, et cetera. Honestly, can I tell you something? Our potential and our destiny cannot be limited externally. I believe with this all of my heart. Our greatest limitations are within us, Because if you take somebody and you give them your set of problems, they can win with it. There are people who can win with our issues. There are people, go ahead, give them our insecurities, give them our past, our upbringing, our life. I've talked to people from every walk of life, every single walk of life. And they are succeeding today. They're walking in purpose today. And every one of them has the same thing in common. They had to overcome these limiting beliefs, these strongholds that they believed about themselves. And once that happened, they started to do things that nobody in their family had ever done before, which was part of the greatest struggle, quite frankly, that greatest hurdle of not having seen it modeled for you. They began to do it, though. And it was intimidating, but they did, and they broke through those barriers. And so our greatest hurdles in life will come from inside of us. The way we think about two things, Dom. The way we think about God and the way we think about ourselves are the two most important things about us.
mm. Wow. Wow. That's so darn true. Because I never pictured that way, but it's so darn true because sometimes we may try to limit God with our own limited thinking. And we can
Absolutely.
limit like
Absolutely, Dom. Absolutely. And we see it, oh my goodness, over and over again in scripture. It just blows my mind how long it's been in there. He said to Abraham, Abraham, I'm going to make you a father of many nations. Abraham was an older guy. I mean, he was beyond the years of being able to father a child. And he said, nah, I don't see how that's possible. He was putting limitations, which is one of the seven deadly thoughts. It's too late. He had begun to put these limitations on God. He said, no, that's not possible. What I think is interesting, Dom, is what God did with Abraham. He said, Abraham, come here. He said, I want you, number one, step out of your tent. In other words, step out of that tiny space you've created for your life. Step out of that confined space that you're used to. Everything you do is confined within this tent. And so Abraham steps out and he says, look at the stars in the sky, Abraham. He said, look at the sand on the seashore. He said, your descendants shall outnumber them. What's God doing? God's
wow.
expanding his vision. God's saying, look, you've been stuck in this way of thinking. I need to get you out of that way of thinking. I want to help change the way you think. And what does he use? The stars, and he uses the beach. I think that, beach ministry is the best ministry. Come on, man.
Yeah.
And God is expanding his thoughts. That's what I'm saying. It's always been there. It's in scripture. It's in the Bible. It's in our lives. And oftentimes our Father, who is a loving Father, who's a good Father, who has good things for us, he's trying to help us take those limits. See, we can't limit God, but we can limit ourselves and what we will receive from God. We limit what we're able to receive from God. We limit ourselves in trusting God to take the steps of faith that will lead to his perfect will and destiny and purpose for our lives. So that's why I wrote the book. I couldn't take it anymore. And I kept having meetings, Dom. I kept coaching people and meeting with people and counseling people. And I'm like, okay, I keep running into these same issues, these same thought patterns. How can I get this message out to the multitudes? Because I can't have 7,000 meetings, but I can sell 7,000 books. So how can I get this message into the hands of more people? Because everyone, and these thoughts keep recycling. It was interesting. It was the same 7 thoughts I kept running into over and over and over again. And so that's why I wrote the book. I think it's one of these books. In fact, when I took it to the publisher, they said, "Who's your target audience?" This is a true story, Dom. They said, "Who's your target audience?" I said, "Well, I think the book's for everybody." They said, "You can't say that. Every author says that. Everyone thinks it's for everybody. I need you to come up with your target audience." So I went back with my team and we worked together and I said, okay, we came up with a target audience. I still believed it was for everybody, but I said, okay, I'm going to play by their rules. I said, here's the target audience between this age and this age. And they said, okay, great, thank you. We're going to take your manuscript. We're going to take a look at it. They took the manuscript. They read it. They came back at our next meeting. They said, you know, I don't know how to say this, but your book, this is for everybody. And so that's a true story. And I said, yeah, I really believe that's true. I didn't say I told you so. I just said, I really believe that's true. Because no matter what walk of life, no matter what age we are, no matter where we've come from, these thoughts are universal. We wrestle with these in our lives. Young, old, rich, poor, nonprofit, for-profit, Fortune 500 company, mom and pop shop, it doesn't matter. Married, single, divorced, remarried. We all wrestle with these thoughts. Now, how they enter into our lives may be different. Our circumstances, how they got there may be different. But the thoughts themselves, nah, we've all got to wrestle with these at one time or another.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You're so darn right. And it's really so true because it seems like, heck, even when we get to like new levels and heck, face new devils, we sometimes forget what we were able to overcome in the past with God's
Mm,
help and the strength that He's given us. And like for those who may be dealing with that now, they may have really got to the point in life where they've had a few victories. They may have gotten that promotion that they're looking for. They have this much of someone in their life, and they still keep going back over and over to those recycled limiting beliefs. Any
mm.
advice for those to help them break that cycle?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I tell people all the time, because I think there's a temptation when you get stuck in a cycle and you feel frustrated with yourself. And a lot of times we wrestle with this fear of always being stuck. And so the temptation when we're stuck is to quit. We quit. We just usually quit. And most often we quit prematurely or where we quit when we shouldn't have quit at all because we think, well, if I just go to a new city or if I just go to a new job or if I just go to a new church or if I just start a new relationship or if I get a divorce and find someone else, maybe I can break the cycle. Here's the problem with that, Dom. You can do all of that, but you take you with you wherever you go. You
Yep.
can change all of that, but the cycle is not changed externally. The cycle is changed internally. It's changed in our minds and it's changed in our hearts. And so we have to find a way to interrupt the cycle. But to interrupt the cycle, it requires us to do something none of us want to do, get uncomfortable. I've never met anybody who comfortably broke the cycles in their lives, the destructive cycles or the quitting cycles or the whatever it is in your life, whether it's financial, relational, spiritual. If you want to see cycles broken in your life, you've got to get uncomfortable. You've got to lean into the discomfort of doing some self-examination, leaning into your own heart, leaning into your own mind and saying, okay, what are some limiting beliefs or mindsets I picked up along the way that I didn't realize I built my entire life around? Maybe I picked it up when I was 7 years old and my parents got a divorce and I picked up this limiting belief that I'm not acceptable. Maybe I picked up this limiting belief when I was rejected in college and somebody I loved walked away from me. Maybe I picked up this limiting belief in high school. I don't know. You finish the blank. I talked to one gentleman, very successful, great guy, incredible guy, professional businessman. And we were having this conversation about these cycles. And he said, wow, he said, I just had a revelation. He said, I just realized what I had done. He said, I spent most of my life running from rejection. He said, out of college, he got fired from his first job. He felt so rejected from that termination that for the next decade plus, he would only work a job for 2 to 3 years and then he would quit before they could fire him because he was carrying this I'm not acceptable, I'm not enough idea in his mind. So he kept moving his family all over the country.
Mhm.
In fact, it might have been 10, 15, 20 years. He said
Wow.
it spanned years. And then one day he woke up and realized, wait, this isn't healthy. Something's off, something's wrong. He was living with this limiting belief that I am not enough. And when he confronted the limiting belief, it broke that cycle in his life. And now he said, man, I've never been happier. My family loves it. I'm a different husband. I'm a different father. I'm a different person now. But it requires us to get uncomfortable. It requires us to admit, I've got some brokenness somewhere, and I need to invite someone else into my life to identify it. And Dom, I think this is the toughest part. It is scary to invite another voice, another set of eyes in to say, hey, listen, I do care about you. Here's what I see. That's really scary. But once we
Mhm.
take that step of faith and invite that into our lives and recognize, Dom, especially as a believer, my value does not come in being whole. My value comes from Jesus and what he accomplished on the cross for me. So I can invite that into my life, knowing that acknowledging my own brokenness and insecurities, that doesn't make me any less valuable. And it doesn't make me I don't have any less potential. And I think that's probably, Dom, I would say that's the hardest part. But inviting someone you love and trust that loves you and has your best interest in mind to help you speak through your blind spots. If you don't have that, then I would just encourage somebody to A, consider hiring a professional coach. There's a lot of them out there that are really good at doing just this very thing. This is what they do for a living. B, maybe a counselor is needed. And by the way, there's no shame in counseling. I think that's a stigma we desperately need to break. The most successful people I know see a counselor regularly just to be proactive. And thirdly, I saved the best for last. Buy my book.
Yes, indeed. Well, hey, it's definitely good advice indeed, because the beautiful thing about this book is biblical principles combined with real life experiences that really just the raw truth that we all really need. Like, there are definitely seven deadly thoughts out there that we need to watch out for, and we've all succumbed to them. We've
That's
all
right.
do it, no matter what age or rank we may be. Like, we've all had succumbed to at least one of them, if not all of them. So
That's right.
definitely pick up this book and share with your friends and your family. So since my man's been a pastor for 20 plus years in the making, what would probably be the two or three biggest leadership lessons you've learned from being a pastor?
Leadership lesson number one, the power of authenticity. I don't have to think about it. The most John Maxwell said this years ago. I think it's still as valid as it was when he said it. He said the most powerful thing about me is my authenticity, leading from your true, authentic self, being yourself. You know, Dom, there's a lot of identity theft going around, and and man, I'm telling you, there's a lot of it going around. And it's funny when you don't know who you are, you always borrow who someone else is. The problem with that is that the people that are waiting on your gift and waiting on you don't recognize it in you because you're too busy being someone you're not.
Mm,
And so the value of discovering you, Dom, you, the way God created you, your personality, your unique gifts and talents, all of that. And we wrestle with it because, once again, back to limiting beliefs, because we really don't think we have value. So we end up imitating other people that we deem valuable, not realizing that we have incredible treasure buried inside of us. We've all got potential, your authenticity. And when you're authentic, here's what's going to happen: you're going to draw people to you that are supposed to be in your life. Now,
mm,
conversely, there's also a truth. If you're not authentic, if you're inauthentic, you're borrowing someone else's identity. Here's the problem: you're going to draw people to you who will never stay with you.
mm,
You will always draw people to you that are attracted to the mask that you wear rather than the real you. And they'll always be coming and going. You'll have a hard time keeping people in your life because inevitably the real you will leak out. It'll come out. And eventually you get exhausted trying to hold up the facade. And it's just so much easier in life just to be your true and authentic self. So that'd be the first thing. I think learning the value of us. Christ proved our value on the cross 2,000 years ago. He said, this is how valuable I think you are. He voluntarily went to the cross. He was crucified. He rose again. He did all of that for us, Dom. I mean, wow. Here's what that means. You ready? I can't add to my value and I can't take away from it because
mm.
Jesus is the one that established it. So I think that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say in terms of just leadership development and keys to leading is valuing people. One of the things that bothers me that I see a lot in organizations, whether it's churches or otherwise, is people are viewed as assets, or they're viewed
Mm,
as pieces on a chessboard to be moved around for the good or the sake of the leader, rather than the leader leaning into the relationships and the value of those people. In my opinion, Dom, the leader's first responsibility is to pull out the giftedness, the potential inside of those that are on his or her team. That's our first calling. We serve our team by helping them step into God's perfect will and purpose for their life. And when you care enough about your team to take interest in their lives as people, when you care enough about them to help them develop who God called them to be, when you give them room to spread their wings, when you help them become good decision makers, when you help them cultivate their potential, oh, goodness, there is something that is incredibly synergetic about it. When the old saying goes, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that's one of the most valuable leadership principles that any leader at any stage of their leadership can learn and implement. I think that's crucial because you won't establish anything long term unless you truly care about the people that are close to you.
yes, indeed. You could definitely say that again. Some more transformational truths, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The power of authenticity. That's part of the reason why it's a buzzword nowadays, because folks are tired of folks faking the funk out there.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! And let me tell you, it's everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere. I think you know, I'm a pastor, so my context is often in the local church. I mean, Dom, I'll be honest. I mean, I grew up, and oftentimes there wasn't a lot of authenticity. I grew up under leadership models that were keep people at a distance, only show people your strengths, always pretend that you have it all together, don't get close to anybody. And the problem with that is that it created a false image of successful leadership. And it taught people that they could never do what they see their leader doing because it sold them a false narrative. Here's what it sold them: the only people that can do this is Superman and Superwoman. The only people that can do this are the people with no flaws or no mistakes or no past or no brokenness. But here's what I discovered: I discovered that people relate far better to Clark Kent than to Superman.
Hmm.
People relate far more to Clark Kent than to Superman. I mean, tell me more about your kryptonite. Let me know that you can be imperfect and God can still work through your life and in your life to accomplish great things. Because that that gives me hope. That tells me that look, if God can use you with your past and your pain and your brokenness and your failures, God can use me too. I still have destiny and I still have purpose. And so I cannot overstate the importance of authenticity. It's something that I practice and something that my wife and I work on here at Life Church, and we found it to be we really found it to be transformational in the lives of those people that we're honored to lead.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And speaking of transformational, you got the super special, awesome podcast, Transformational Truths. So, my goodness. So, how did that start, my friend?
I had a desire to do this. I had a desire, Dom, to help people. I really did, and I was trying to figure out how to get the message out quicker and faster. I wanted to get this message into the hands and the ears, if you will, of leaders and people who are already out there doing it. They're leading. They're in business. They're in ministry. They're podcasting. They're writing. They're doing something in broadcasting. I want to help people. So we launched this podcast called Transformational Truths, and every podcast is based off a leadership axiom or a truth of life, a very short and sweet, memorable axiom of life. And that's what we talk about. The goal of the podcast is to restore the joy to life and leadership. We want to eliminate every obstacle that hinders us from enjoying this journey of pursuing our purpose. Because I've discovered it's possible to have fun. It's possible to pursue your purpose and have a good time doing it. Life is too short not to. So that's why we launched Transformational Truths. We have a new episode that drops every Tuesday. In fact, we had an episode that just dropped this morning with Bishop Sherman D. Farmer, a pastor in your city, as a matter of fact, Dom. And I've got another episode coming up with Bishop Joseph Walker III. We've interviewed some incredible leaders. Phil Pringle leads a network of churches of over 120,000 people. He's got an incredible voice, incredible vision. Patrick Winfield out of Dallas, Ben Daly out of Dallas, Texas. Man, we've been blessed to have some great voices, some leadership voices on the podcast, and so I would just encourage people to lean in. I really believe that it'll be a blessing.
Yes, sir, indeed. And he's so right. And the good news is there's a bunch of episodes you can catch, and they range usually from, I guess, like 30 to like 40 minutes. So
Yeah,
under an hour. So catch it.
that's right.
Yes, indeed. And well produced too. So my man, Pastor Travis has got a good team helping him out, getting that
Oh
good
man,
quality
listen,
content.
I do. I've got Dom. I am so blessed with my team. I'm telling you, Tina and I don't know, we couldn't do what we do without them. We wouldn't be where we are without them. And I remember years ago hearing the great comedian Jerry Seinfeld when they asked about his success, the success of the show, and his answer was incredibly refreshing. He said, honestly, he said, I'm an okay comedian. He said, but I have an incredible team around me. And he was talking about the cast from the show. He said, it's not me, it's the team. And man, I love leading. I love helping people. But let me tell you something. I've got a team around me, Dom, that is just, they're incredible. So we're blessed.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You can definitely say that again. So since you've been on both sides of the mic interviewing others and being interviewed, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're on the guest side of the game?
Is there a question I wish I would be asked more often? Yeah, that question. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. You know what, Dom? I've been so everything that I've been doing has been around seven deadly thoughts, and so the interviews have usually been so far pretty pretty rich, and pretty packed. So that's a good question. I haven't run into that yet. I have a feeling that at some point I will, but because I've been spending so much time talking about either the book or the podcast, I haven't walked away from an interview yet where I thought, really wish they would have asked me this question. And Dom, especially with a guy like you who's obviously in his niche, man, you are doing your thing, and you've got the perfect vibe for this, Dom. You've got the perfect. I mean, you're a great speaker. You've got the perfect voice for it, man. So I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing. It's a blessing to me.
Well, I'm honored. That's the aim of the show. Help others get their messages out there because we all definitely need it, especially folks who write books, especially the first ones, because we usually have no idea what the heck we're doing.
No, we don't. You're absolutely right. We don't. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm thankful for it.
Yes, sir, indeed. So, by goodness. So, with all these wonderful things, the good thing about you, Pastor Travis, is that you weren't always this way. You actually had a couple early setbacks in life and some things that really would think like, "Oh my gosh, like, dude, this guy's all clean cut and everything," but you actually had a rough past where you actually dropped out of high school and had some rough times of losing some relatives. So my goodness, am I going deeper into that to help folks
Sure.
realize that, hey, everybody's not perfect here?
No, I would be happy to. My mom and dad, my parents, they came into faith when I probably was about 10 or 11 years old. Prior to that, my mom and dad were, man, they partied. Dom, they partied. I mean, that's all I saw growing up, and that was modeled for me. And then, so my faith, I went to church with my parents, but my faith was extremely shallow at best. And then when I was 14 years old, my older brother, who served in the United States Navy, he was in a tragic accident in 1991. His plane collided with another plane and about 60 miles off the coast of California. It made national news at the time. In fact, your listeners could go and Google if they wanted to. Two P-3 Orions naval aircraft collided. 26 men were on those planes. No bodies were
Mm,
recovered. I was close to my brother, and that devastated me. I was angry. I was bitter, Dom. I was resentful. And I blamed God for that. And so for the next 4 years of my life, from the age of 14 to 18, I made every bad decision, just about every bad decision in the book. I didn't just run from God. In my mind, I was trying to hurt the God who I thought was hurting me.
mm,
And so I messed up in school. I ended up dropping out of school. I ended up starting a family very, very young in life. I mean, I became a father when I was 17 years old. In fact, my son, who was born at that time, was the greatest thing birthed out of that season of my life, and I'm graciously grateful for that. But then I started some other bad habits, and I started getting high, and I started selling drugs, and until one night we left a party. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. We got pulled over by a Saginaw Township police officer. This is at that time I was living in Michigan, Saginaw, Michigan, and I'll never forget. They found the drugs. They found the gun. There was four of us in the car. They found a loaded gun, in the car. We had made some enemies, so we got a gun illegally. In fact, the serial number had been acided off the gun. And when they found it, it went from 0 to 100 pretty quick. Face down on the concrete
Mm.
with the 9mm pistol to the back of my head. The police officer said, "If you move, I'll blow your brains out." I'll never forget. They picked us up. They leaned us over the hood of that car, and I looked over the hood of the car and I saw my friends, and each of them had their own police officer with their own gun to the back of their head. And it was like looking at myself in the mirror. And I remember that moment thinking, I'm not sure this is the life I really was thinking I wanted when I started down this path. That night, my life started falling apart. I ended up losing my young family, ended up losing my job at the time, ended up losing the apartment we were living in. Everything just started falling apart, Dom. And until one night, I was by myself, driving in my car. The radio was off, and God met me there. I don't know how else to explain it to you or your listeners, but God met me there. It was like he just showed up, not physically, just the Spirit of God met me in that car, Dom. And I remember driving and just literally saying out loud, "Oh my God, I can't do life without you." And I drove home. I was living with my parents. I was back living with my parents. I'm 18 years old now, and uh, walked into their backyard, and I looked up into the sky and I said, "God, it's me. It's Travis." And I said, I know 4 years ago I said I would never serve you again. I would never have a relationship with you. I said, but if you'll forgive me, if you'll take me back, I'll serve you with the rest of my life. And I was 18 years old, Dom. I'm 45 years old today. And I'm here to tell you and your listeners that God is gracious and he is good. And he set me on my feet. And it was a matter of time after that, Dom, I went on to get a good job. Ended up going back to school, finishing my high school education, of course. Later would go to college, finish up my master's degree, and God would call me to ministry, and found the woman of my dreams, have an incredible family today. God, I'm not saying there hasn't been valleys, but God has been there all along, and he's been very, very good to me. I'm not here. I'm not here because of my great qualifications. I'm here as a trophy of God's grace, and it's just as
Mm.
simple as that.
Wow. I'm here as a trophy as God's grace. My goodness, man. That's a t-shirt right there. Oh my goodness. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, thanks a bunch for sharing that, my friend, and hope I'm sure someone gained something out of that because it's so powerful. Because sometimes folks may, in our limited thinking, we may think, oh, let's go ahead and hurt God because we're going through pain right now.
Yeah,
And it
that's
usually
right.
works in reverse. You just make yourself hurt more and you end up going back to God anyway.
No, that is absolutely right. In fact, here's what I discovered. In fact, this is in the book, and I wrote this from personal experience. It's usually not the pain that produces the most baggage in our lives. It is how we handle the pain.
Mm,
It's not the pain itself. It's how we try to numb the pain. It's how we try to anesthetize that pain. That's what usually produces all of the unnecessary baggage in our lives and slows us down. But once again, God's so faithful, man. He is so merciful. He's the one that got me to where I am today, and I'm walking in my own purpose, and I love life.
amen to that. We're probably 55 purple hearts, baby. That's right. Yes, indeed.
Oh, I love it.
Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but this time in 2021 with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. There's more. God placed more inside of you than you could ever begin to dream or imagine. Take ridiculous steps of faith.
Mm,
Don't you dare. If I was talking to myself, I would say, Travis, don't you dare play it safe. Take ridiculous steps of faith. Because at 45, looking back, I've discovered that God is extraordinarily faithful. And every time I've taken a step down, he's met me there. Oh my goodness, to be 25 again, to take incredible steps of faith at the age of 25. Oh yeah. Don't play it safe. Take steps of faith. We get one shot on this side of eternity. Make it your best shot. Believe in yourself. I would tell myself, there's no such thing as failure. We don't count failures. We count, listen to me carefully. We don't count losses, we count lessons. That's
mm,
what I would tell myself. Failure does not make you a failure, Travis. I would say failure means you're learning how to do something you've never done before. I would tell myself, stop paying attention to the critics. Don't let the critics determine your course. You run your race. Don't turn to the right. Don't turn to the left, because I've never met somebody who hated me that was doing better than me.
Mm.
Keep running your course. Well, that's a great question. In fact, you're giving me sermon material here, Dom. I might be preaching this Sunday.
Yes, indeed. Take the ridiculous steps of faith, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. My goodness. Man, this has been hotter than fish grease, baby.
Man, listen, I'm using that, Dom. I don't know when. I don't know how. Hotter than fish grease. Okay, I'm using that. I'm using it. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Oh, man. Man, this is good. This is definitely good. I mean, it's always hard to pick favorite episodes, and everybody's been good, but this interview's definitely been one of my tops in a while. Definitely. Like this has definitely been powerful. And for those who want to embrace more of what you have to offer, because I know you also have a wonderful course that goes along with the book too. What's the best way for folks to reach out and learn more about the good Pastor Travis?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. I think for those that are going to purchase the book, you can get it on Amazon, but if you like free stuff, then I would encourage you to go to my website. It is cultivatemypurpose.com/book. And if you go there, you can, number one, get the first chapter for free. You can get an application guide, but you can also get a 5-part course that I created for free called Discovering the Purpose in Your Pain. It is an incredible, I really believe in the course. It's a powerful course, well put together, and you can go there and submit your information and get all that free stuff. So you don't just get the book. I really want to put tools in the hands of people that's going to help them succeed. If you want to connect with me outside of the book, Instagram at PastorTHall. I'm very, very active over there. Every day I'm on Instagram. If you're interested in marriage, relationships, and emotional health, the first of the year, I launched a TikTok account, PastorTHall. I went into it kicking and screaming, Dom. I did not want another social media platform, but I went in talking about marriage and relationships because it's a burden that my wife and I carry. And 4 months later, I've got 30,000 followers, and I've had probably a dozen videos that really took off and really helped a lot of people. So I would just love to connect with people over there. PastorTHall on all of my social media handles. Yeah, would love to stay in touch and would love to keep up with everybody.
Well, there you have it, folks. Reach out to Pastor Travis, slide to his DMs and say, hey, your book is awesome. Like, I'm going to subscribe to your YouTube channel for all your sermons too, and check out all the stuff that he's doing, because my man's doing some great things, baby. That's right. Giving that good old wonderful baptism by fire. That's right. That's right.
Hotter than fish grease.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's what this episode's been. Hotter than fish grease, baby.
Come on. Come on.
So any parting words before we close up shop?
Dom, yeah, I just want to thank you. This has been, you just honored me so graciously and said how much you enjoyed this interview, but I just have to tell you genuinely and sincerely, Dom, you have a gift. This has been by far one of my favorite interviews to be a part of on the receiving end of this. So thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for allowing me to be on your platform and exposing me to your audience. I'm grateful for it, and I appreciate the opportunity.
You just got done listening to another powerful, power-packed episode of the Going North podcast. I hope you really enjoyed what you heard. Go check out the guest stuff. It's all in the show notes on the website, dombrightman.com, and also reach out to those that you've just heard as well. And keep going north.